5 states of the Southeast were affected, and those affected by the error of our system to accept the explanation I've given as the truth on this matter. I apologize and take full responsibility, not just in words.
So by your explanations or press brief, you made us to understand that this is sabotage of the process of 2025 Jamb year. Now, what we don't know, who are those behind the sabotage? You ask us to accept whatever explanation you are giving out to the public. So, but to put to you that the explanation wasn't enough and convincingly to make us accept whatever you're saying. We can't just accept anything given to us. Who are those responsible? Who are those saddled with the responsibility of providing or monitoring the server or the control system that should provide or turn on the server when it is necessary? Why is it that they could not detect such errors until throughout the process of the exam? This is fundamental. For me, I describe this as intellectual terrorism. It's an act of intellectual terrorism. Based on your own position, you said it was a sabotage. Now, what was the intention of that people or vested interest in sabotaging the process of exam that affects the future of majority of the candidates from the southeastern region? You claim that the entire 5 eastern region was affected, even though it is 10 or 20 or 1,000 persons, but this is not the case. Over 200,000 populations of prospective candidates were sabotaged. Their future were sabotaged. Their future was mortgaged by what you called a sabotage or a conspiracy to discredit your administration or the 2025 Jamb admission year. You know what that means? Having expended so much money into registering and passing through the rigorous process of data capturing, data collections, and the rest of them, only 1 or 2 persons could sabotage this course. So what we want to know with due respect, your explanation to this or what may have transpired wasn't enough. We saw, of course, you expressed some emotional breakdown. Well, that is but that wasn't enough to convince us, because you admitted that this was a sabotage by vested interest. We want to know those who are behind this and what was their ulterior motive embarking on such intellectual terrorism. It's very important, and such people could not detect that. Which means, by my own observations, opinion, it is premeditated. It was intentional. If they could not track or detect there was an error, that people could not access the server until the entire process of the exam was over. For that affected the entire southeastern region. There are more to this. Is it an extension of Boko Haram? The terrorism against Western education, now targeted at a particular region, the southeastern region. We have over 6 geographical regions in Nigeria. None of these regions, except for Lagos, as you claim, was affected. Even the volatile region of Northeast, Northwest, and the rest of the North Central wasn't affected. Now it is the entire southeastern region that should be affected. And you want us just to accept your explanation, which was not coherent, which was not, as detailed for anyone to understand. You rather left us at suspense because you said it was a sabotage, and you blamed that on 1 or 2 persons that was contracted to take care of such. So we want to know What was their intention? What was running through their mind? And what was their intention or mission to have acted in such a way? It is important to serve as a deterrent and, of course, to deter further occurrences. Yes, the exam has been rescheduled, but what guarantees that such would not occur again? What guarantee that such tendencies could not be repeated? What guarantees that people could no longer be sabotaged, if not now, in the near future? It's very important, and anyone found culpable should be brought to book, because it is purely an act of intellectual terrorism and nothing short of that. Of course, you have taken responsibility of such errors, being that you are the boss, saddled with such responsibility of conducting a more credible and transparent, more reliable, of course, Jamb exam and admission process. It is quite unfortunate that this is happening under your watch, but that notwithstanding, we know you can't be everywhere at the same time. But what we want to do is to give us a more detailed events of what's transpired. What you have given, what is before the public domain, wasn't enough. Who are those one or two persons who decided to sabotage that process that affected the entire southeastern region? Is it an extension of Boko Haram, of course, of war or against Western education? And why should the southeastern region be brought into that picture? Of course, it's leave people with so many to begin to think or speculate what would have transpired, or perhaps you want to frustrate people of the southeastern region not to get admission. Is it an extension of intellectual terrorism? These are areas we want more clarifications, and what should be done to foster further occurrences, because we can't just accept that. I mean, people who have expended so much in registering, data capturing, transporting themselves to and fro, and you want them to incur such loss just like that without any compensations. People should be compensated by the Joint Admission and Matriculation Boards and the UMT or whatever they are being called, and by way of subsidizing or compensating them for the transportation fare to and fro in the next dates of rescheduled exams. It's important because under this current economic mishaps, not all the students could afford. I know people all the way from the suburb regions to villages travel to the town several kilometers away from their abodes to take the exam. So what will you tell them? If the exam is rescheduled within the shortest possible time, how do you expect them to recover? How do you expect them to get transportation down to the individual centers or exam centers? Is it just coming to tell them you take responsibility? You should take full responsibility of such, because people or the candidates should not be blamed. Compensate them for the transportation. Take responsibility of incurring the debt. I advocate for 20,000, an average of 20,000 be paid to every candidate who was affected by these technical glitches, as you said, which is not far from being intellectual terrorism, because any responsible person who was contracted to deliver, and when he fails due to negligence to duty, there are provisions that could address that under the law, because that is gross negligence, and the people or the candidates should not be made to incur the unnecessary costs additional cost to this. It's important. I don't accept mere apology or taking responsibility. You must take full responsibility. Provide for the transportation fare of these candidates, irrespective of wherever the exam centers are. Give them 20,000. It's not enough. In Nigeria, one person explains that under Tinubu's administration, that none of the senators have received less than 1 billion as constituency allowances. No, you cannot tell me that 20,000 will be too much to compensate those people who were affected by the alleged technical glitches. It's not enough. There is so much money exchanging hands in this country, so you can't give any tenable or tangible excuses why they should not be compensated. At least 20,000 for their transportation, regardless of wherever they are. The food they ate that day, the exercise, the stress they went through. 20,000 is not even enough to say to console them. But to be on the fair side, we know, of course, the board has incurred so additional cost, which should not be blamed on the candidates. They should take responsibility of that and also compensate these candidates. Every time in Nigeria, when as a result of negligence of duty, you want the victims to go away without being compensated, I think let's begin to address that. If we continue to hold people responsible and make them pay for the negligence, of course, it will serve as a deterrent to others who may want to take the same paths. So I strongly advocate that people affected, the candidates of the southeastern region, should be compensated. I know what it takes to shuttle from the remote regions, the villages, down to the urban cities where they could access internet and facilities for such exams. So it shouldn't be taken for granted, or they shouldn't be made to pay and suffer for what they never, of course, what they were not responsible for. The government should be held responsible, not just taking or accepting responsibilities for such errors. They should also accept responsibilities of paying and compensating these candidates. Every candidate affected, whether in Lagos State or in the entire southeastern region, that is an intellectual terrorism, unless you were able to convince me otherwise. Let me have your own take regarding this development. It's a very worrisome development and should not be swept under the carpet. Professor Oloyede should be made to compensate these candidates if whatever apology he has tendered before the public could be acceptable by me and, of course, majority of others. Why should the people incur unnecessary costs of transportation and the rest of them? We know the people are willing to go back to sit for the exams despite the psychological and emotional trauma they may have gone through, which they weren't responsible for such. So giving them or compensating them for 20,000 for transportation will not be enough, will not be out of place. Let me have your own take regarding this development, always keeping it real and unbiased reportage here in CoWave TV. I remain Chigoz Ndebo. Don't forget to like, share this video, let it get to the registrar of Joint Admission and Matriculation Board and the UNT, of course, to do what is needful. Of course, the slated dates for the rescheduled exams have been fixed. Let people be paid. The candidates affected be paid 20,000 for compensation. Then we can accept whatever apology tendered. Thanks for watching.